Jack the Ripper. In 1888, an unidentified serial killer by the name of Jack the Ripper terrorized the Whitechapel district of London. His victims were primarily female prostitutes who lived and worked in the slums of the East End. The killer is believed to have murdered at least 5 women, known as the Canonical Five. The murders took place between August and November, and they were particularly gruesome. The victims' throats were slit, and their bodies were mutilated, often with organs removed. The police launched an extensive investigation, but despite interviewing hundreds of suspects, they never caught the murderer. H. Holmes. He is infamous for building a hotel in Chicago, later dubbed the Murder Castle, which he used to lure and kill his victims during the 1893 World's Fair. The building was designed with secret passageways, soundproof rooms, trapdoors, and even a gas chamber. Holmes would often scam his victims, particularly young women, by offering them jobs or a place to stay before killing them and disposing of their bodies. He was also a con artist and engaged in insurance fraud, often faking deaths or killing associates to collect life insurance payouts. He was eventually caught in 1894 after being arrested for fraud, which led investigators to uncover his many crimes. He confessed to 27 murders, though some estimates suggest he may have killed over 200 people. Albert Fish. Albert Fish was a serial killer who preyed on young children, often luring them away under false pretenses before torturing and murdering them in unspeakable ways. His most infamous crime was in 1928 when he tricked 10-year-old Grace Budd's parents into letting him take her for a supposed birthday party. Instead, he brutally killed and cannibalized her, later sending a horrifying letter to her family explaining what he did. Fish also admitted to killing and torturing 2 other children, but the authorities believe that he killed about 100. After his arrest in 1934, he claimed to hear voices and believed God commanded him to kill. Belle Gunness. Belle was known for luring men to her property with promises of marriage, only to kill them for financial gain. She would often place advertisements in newspapers seeking wealthy suitors. Once they arrived at her farm, they were never seen again. She reportedly murdered her victims by poisoning, bludgeoning, or dismembering them. Before her killing spree, Belle was suspected of murdering her first husband, Mads Sorensen, in 1900 to collect his life insurance. She later married Pedro López, who also died under suspicious circumstances. After his death, Belle continued to invite men to her farm, robbing them and disposing of their bodies. In 1908, her farmhouse mysteriously burned down, and the police discovered several dismembered bodies buried on the property. Among the remains was a headless female body, which many believed to be Belle's. However, doubts arose about whether she had truly died in the fire or if she had faked her death to escape justice. Some reports suggested she was seen alive years later, but she was never caught. The exact number of her victims is unknown, but estimates range from 14 to over 40. Ted Bundy. Ted Bundy was responsible for the brutal murders of at least 30 young women across multiple states in the 1970s. He appeared to be a charming and well-educated man, which allowed him to gain the trust of his victims. He often lured women by pretending to need help, such as wearing a fake cast or using crutches before attacking them. He would kidnap, assault, and kill his victims, sometimes returning to the crime scenes to mutilate the bodies. He was first arrested in 1975 but managed to escape custody twice before being recaptured. In 1978, Bundy committed his final murders in Florida, attacking multiple girls at a sorority house. He was arrested shortly after and sentenced to death. Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Dahmer's crimes were particularly gruesome, as he not only killed his victims but also engaged in acts of necrophilia, dismemberment, and even cannibalism. Dahmer invited his victims, mostly young men and boys, to his apartment by offering money or sex. Once inside, he would drug them, strangle them, and perform horrific experiments on their bodies. He kept body parts as trophies, including skulls and preserved organs. Despite several encounters with law enforcement, he managed to avoid arrest for years. In 1991, one of his intended victims, Tracy Edwards, escaped and led police to Dahmer's apartment, where they discovered photographs of dismembered bodies and human remains in his refrigerator. Dahmer was arrested and sentenced to multiple life terms in prison, but was killed by a fellow inmate in 1994. John Wayne Gacy. Gacy worked as a contractor and even performed as a clown at children's parties, earning him the nickname the Killer Clown. He lured his victims, often young runaways or teenage boys, to his home with promises of work, money, or simply by impersonating a police officer. Once inside, he would overpower them, sexually assault them, and then strangle them, often using a rope. He would then bury the bodies of his victims under his house or dispose of them in nearby rivers. His killings went undetected for years, despite investigations and missing persons reports. In 1978, Gacy was finally arrested after a young man, Robert Peast, disappeared, and his mother alerted the authorities. Police discovered the bodies of 29 victims beneath Gacy's home, while others were found in the rivers. Ed Gein. This guy inspired numerous horror films, including Psycho and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. He was born in 1906 in Wisconsin and raised by an abusive mother who made him hate women. After his mother's death, Gein began to exhume bodies from local cemeteries, removing skin and body parts, which he used to create furniture, clothing, and masks. Gein's crimes escalated when he murdered 2 women, Mary Hogan in 1954 and Bernice Worden in 1957. When police investigated his home, they discovered body parts, preserved organs, and human remains throughout his house. Gein confessed to the murders and was deemed legally insane. Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Wuornos was a female serial killer who killed 7 men between 1989 and 1990, claiming that she shot them in self-defense during attempted sexual assaults while she was working as a prostitute. Wuornos' victims were typically men who picked her up while she was on the streets. She was arrested in 1991, convicted of 6 murders and sentenced to death. Richard Ramirez. Also known as the Night Stalker, this serial killer would randomly break into homes at night and attack his victims with a variety of weapons, including guns, knives, and blunt objects. He would often leave unsettling symbols, such as pentagrams, at the crime scenes. Ramirez wore different clothing and sometimes used different weapons in each attack, making it difficult for law enforcement to link the crimes together. In 1985, Ramirez was finally arrested after a group of citizens recognized him from a police sketch and managed to detain him until the police arrived. He was convicted of 13 murders, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries, and was sentenced to death. Pedro López. In the 1970s and 1980s, López committed murders across Colombia, Ecuador, and Peru. He was also referred to as the Monster of the Andes. His victims were mostly young girls, and he is estimated to have killed over 300 people, although the exact number is uncertain. He would often abduct, sexually assault, and murder his victims, leaving their bodies in remote areas. His criminal activities were discovered when he was arrested in 1980 in Ecuador, where he confessed to the murders of over 100 girls. He was later linked to similar crimes in Colombia and Peru. In 1980, after his arrest, López was sent to a psychiatric hospital where he underwent treatment. However, he was released in 1994 after serving only 14 years in prison. His whereabouts are currently unknown. Andrei Chikatilo. Andrei Chikatilo was a Soviet serial killer, often referred to as the Red Ripper. He was convicted of murdering 52 people, mostly women and children, between 1978 and 1990. His crimes took place in various regions of the Soviet Union, particularly around the city of Rostov-on-Don. Chikatilo would often lure his victims into secluded areas where he would assault, stab, and mutilate them. The bodies of his victims were left in remote locations, and he would sometimes bite or eat parts of their bodies. In 1990, Chikatilo was arrested after he was seen near the scene of a murder, and DNA evidence linked him to several of the killings. He was found guilty of 52 murders and was sentenced to death by firing squad. If you like this video, subscribe to watch similar ones.